The spaceship hovered silently above the barren planet, its engines humming softly as it scanned the surface below. The air inside the ship was tense, filled with a mix of excitement and unease. Captain Ryan Carter stood at the helm, his eyes fixed on the cracked, dry landscape that stretched endlessly beneath them. Beside him, Dr. Laura Hayes adjusted her glasses and leaned closer to the monitor, studying the strange readings coming from the planet's surface. "Something's down there," Laura said, her voice steady but tinged with curiosity. "These energy signatures don't match anything we've seen before." Ryan nodded, his jaw tightening. He trusted Laura's judgment. She had been the one to convince him this mission was worth the risk. But he couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into something far bigger than they could handle. Still, orders were orders. Earth needed answers, and this mysterious signal was their only lead. The team suited up quickly, eager yet cautious. Alongside Ryan and Laura were Ethan Cole, a linguist known for his knack at deciphering ancient languages, and Samantha Sam Brooks, the ship's engineer whose quick thinking had saved them more than once. As they descended in the shuttle, the planet's surface grew clearer, a wasteland of jagged rocks and swirling dust storms. In the distance, they spotted what looked like ruins rising out of the chaos. When they landed, the silence was deafening. No wind, no movement, just an eerie stillness that made everyone uneasy. They moved toward the ruins, their boots crunching against the rocky ground. The structure ahead resembled a massive wall covered in strange symbols carved deep into the stone. At its center stood a towering monolith, black and smooth, standing out starkly against the dull surroundings. Ethan stepped forward first, his eyes wide with fascination. He ran his fingers over the symbols, muttering to himself as he tried to piece together their meaning. After several minutes, he turned to the group, his face pale. "I think I've got something," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "It says, 'We let you live once, never again.'" The words hung heavy in the air. No one spoke for a moment. Laura broke the silence. "That sounds like a warning, or maybe a threat." Ryan frowned. A threat from who? And directed at whom? Before anyone could answer, a low hum filled the air. Startled, the team spun around to see dozens of small metallic drones emerging from the shadows of the ruins. They hovered silently, their sleek surfaces gleaming under the dim light of the distant sun. For a moment, no one moved. Then, without warning, the drones zipped forward, circling the group in tight patterns. Sam instinctively reached for her weapon, but Ryan raised a hand to stop her. "Wait," he said firmly. "They're not attacking." The drones scanned each member of the team, emitting faint beams of light that passed over their suits. After a few seconds, they stopped moving altogether, hovering motionless in the air. Then, just as suddenly as they had appeared, the drones retreated back into the ruins, disappearing from sight. "What was that about?" Sam asked, lowering her weapon but keeping her guard up. "I don't know," Ryan admitted, his brow furrowed. "But we need to figure it out, and fast." Ethan was already back at the monolith, examining it more closely. "There's more here," he said, pointing to additional carvings near the base. "This might tell us why those drones were sent, or what they wanted." As the group gathered around the monolith, none of them noticed the faint glow emanating from the cracks in the ground beneath their feet. Whatever secrets this place held, they were far from done revealing themselves. The team stood in silence, staring at the monolith as Ethan worked to decipher the new symbols. The air felt heavier now, charged with an unspoken tension. Laura crouched beside him, her eyes scanning the carvings for anything they might have missed earlier. Each new discovery seemed to deepen the mystery rather than solve it. "These markings are different," Ethan said finally, his voice low but steady. "They're not just a warning. They're coordinates." "Coordinates?" Ryan asked, stepping closer. "To where?" Ethan pointed to a series of lines and dots etched into the stone. "Somewhere nearby. Maybe another planet or station. It's hard to say without running the numbers through the ship's system." Sam crossed her arms, skeptical. "You think this thing is telling us to go somewhere?" Why would we trust it? We don't have much choice, Laura replied, standing up. If this place holds answers about who sent those drones, or what that message means, we need to follow the trail. Ryan hesitated, glancing back toward their shuttle. He didn't like the idea of leaving the safety of their ship, especially after encountering the drones. But curiosity was winning over caution. All right, he said reluctantly. Let's head back and analyze these coordinates. If they lead somewhere useful, we'll decide then whether to pursue them. Back aboard their vessel, Sam plugged the data into the navigation system while Ethan double-checked his translations. Within minutes, the computer generated a set of coordinates pointing to a star system less than 2 light-years away. The screen displayed images of a lush green planet orbiting a bright yellow sun, a stark contrast to the desolate world they had just left. "This doesn't look like a battlefield," Sam remarked, tilting her head as she studied the visuals. "More like paradise." "Or a trap," Ryan muttered under his breath. Still, he couldn't deny the pull of the unknown. Whatever awaited them on that planet could hold the key to understanding the cryptic message, and perhaps even the purpose behind the drones. After hours of preparation, the team set course for the new destination. As they approached, the planet grew larger on their view screen, its vibrant colors almost hypnotic. Thick forests covered most of its surface, interrupted only by sprawling oceans and towering mountain ranges. It was beautiful, but also unnervingly quiet. No signs of artificial structures, no signals of intelligent life. "Something feels off," Laura said softly, breaking the silence. "This place is too perfect." Ryan nodded. "Stay sharp. We don't know what we're walking into." Once they landed, the team stepped onto the soft grass, breathing in the fresh, clean air. The temperature was mild, and the sky above was a brilliant shade of blue. Birds, or creatures resembling birds, flitted between the trees, their calls echoing faintly in the distance. For a moment, it felt like they had stumbled upon an untouched corner of Earth. But their awe quickly turned to unease when Sam spotted something glinting beneath a cluster of bushes. She knelt down, brushing away leaves to reveal a shard of metal embedded in the ground. It wasn't natural. It was part of some kind of machine. Nearby, Ethan discovered more fragments scattered across the area, all bearing traces of advanced technology. "These pieces, they're old," Ethan said, holding up a jagged piece of alloy. "Centuries, maybe millennia. Someone was here long before us." As they continued exploring, the team found remnants of buildings half buried in the soil. The architecture was alien yet strangely familiar, as if designed by beings who once understood human principles of design. In the center of the ruins, they uncovered a buried artifact, a sleek, cylindrical object pulsing faintly with light. "What is that?" Sam asked, reaching out cautiously. "Don't touch it," Laura warned, grabbing her arm. "We don't know what it does." Before anyone could react further, the ground beneath them trembled slightly. From the shadows of the forest emerged a swarm of metallic drones, identical to the ones they had encountered earlier. This time, however, the machines weren't scanning. They were watching, waiting. "Looks like we've overstayed our welcome," Ryan said grimly, gripping his weapon. The team exchanged worried glances, realizing they might be in deeper trouble than they had anticipated. The drones hovered silently, their cold, metallic surfaces reflecting the sunlight streaming through the trees. The team stood frozen, unsure of what to do next. Ryan tightened his grip on his weapon, his eyes scanning the machines for any sign of aggression. But the drones didn't move closer. They simply floated there, watching, as if waiting for something. "Why aren't they attacking?" Sam whispered, her voice trembling slightly. She glanced at the artifact lying on the ground between them, its faint glow pulsing rhythmically. "Do you think it's because of that thing?" "Maybe," Laura replied, keeping her voice low. "But we can't risk finding out. Let's back away slowly." The team took small, careful steps backward, their movements deliberate. The drones didn't follow. Instead, they began to emit a soft hum, almost like a signal. Then, without warning, they turned in unison and zipped off into the forest, disappearing from sight. "What just happened?" Ethan asked, scratching his head. "They came, stared us down, and left." "That makes no sense." Ryan frowned, lowering his weapon slightly. "Maybe they weren't here to hurt us. Maybe they were testing us." "Testing us for what?" Sam shot back, her tone sharp with frustration. "To see if we'd freak out. Because I'm pretty close to doing that right now." Laura ignored the tension and focused on the artifact. "We need to figure out what this is. It might explain why those drones showed up, and why they left." Ethan knelt beside the object, examining it closely. "It's definitely not human-made. Look at these markings. They match the symbols on the monolith." Ryan sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "All right, we'll take it with us. But we're not messing around with it until we're back on the ship." Sam hesitated but nodded in agreement. Using a piece of cloth from her pack, she carefully picked up the artifact and placed it into a secure container. As they made their way back to the shuttle, the forest seemed eerier than before. Every rustle of leaves or distant bird call felt like a potential threat. Back aboard the ship, the team gathered in the main cabin to examine the artifact more closely. Ethan spread out photos of the ruins and compared them to the carvings on the object. "This place wasn't just abandoned," he said after a while. "It was destroyed. Look at these patterns. They depict some kind of war." Laura leaned in, her brow furrowed. "You think whoever lived here fought against the creators of the drones?" "It's possible," Ethan replied. "Or maybe the drones were weapons used against them. Either way, this planet has seen violence on a massive scale." As the discussion continued, Sam tinkered with the artifact, trying to unlock its secrets. She connected it to the ship's computer, hoping to access whatever data it contained. At first, nothing happened. Then suddenly, the screen flickered to life, displaying a series of images and text in an unfamiliar language. "Whoa!" Sam exclaimed, leaning closer to the monitor. "I think I've got something." Ethan rushed over, his eyes wide with excitement. "Let me see that. These symbols are similar to the ones on the monolith. If I can translate them." Before he could finish, the ship's alarms blared, startling everyone. On the view screen, dozens of drones appeared, surrounding the vessel. Unlike before, they weren't passive. They were actively scanning the hull, their lights flashing rapidly. "They found us," Ryan said, his voice tense. "And this time, they don't look friendly." Laura looked at the artifact, realization dawning on her face. They must have tracked it. Whatever this thing is, it's important to them. "We need to get out of here," Ryan ordered, rushing to the controls. "Now." But as he powered up the engines, the drones began emitting a high-pitched whine. The ship shuddered violently, throwing everyone off balance. Sparks flew from the console, and the lights flickered. "We're losing power," Sam shouted, frantically working to stabilize the systems. Ethan clutched the edge of the table, his face pale. "If we don't figure out what this artifact does soon, we might not make it out alive." The ship rocked violently as the drones outside intensified their assault. Sparks flew from the control panel, and the lights flickered on and off, casting eerie shadows across the cabin. Ryan gripped the controls tightly, his knuckles white as he tried to stabilize the vessel. "We're not going anywhere until we get power back online," he shouted over the noise. Sam scrambled to repair the damaged systems, her hands moving quickly over the wires and circuits. "I'm doing what I can, but they've got us locked down." She yelled back, frustration clear in her voice. The hum of the drones grew louder, vibrating through the hull like a warning. Laura stared at the artifact sitting on the table, its faint glow pulsing faster now. "This thing is the key," she said suddenly, her tone urgent. "It's communicating with the drones somehow." Ethan nodded, his eyes wide with fear, but also determination. "If we can figure out how to use it, maybe we can shut them off, or at least buy ourselves some time." Ryan hesitated, glancing between the artifact and the chaos around them. "Are you sure? Messing with that thing could make things worse." "We don't have a choice," Laura insisted. "If we do nothing, they'll tear this ship apart." With no other options left, Ryan gave a reluctant nod. "All right, but be careful." Ethan and Laura moved closer to the artifact, studying its surface for any clues. The symbols etched into it seemed to shift slightly under the light, almost as if they were alive. Ethan pointed to one section. "These markings look like instructions. Maybe if we activate them in the right order." Before he could finish, Sam interrupted, panic rising in her voice. "Guys, we're running out of time. The engines are overheating." Ignoring the growing tension, Ethan pressed his fingers against the artifact, tracing the symbols carefully. To everyone's surprise, the object responded. It lit up brightly, emitting a soft hum that resonated through the cabin. Outside, the drones paused mid-assault, their movements halting as if confused. "It worked," Ethan exclaimed, relief washing over his face. But before anyone could celebrate, the screen above the artifact flickered to life, projecting a holographic image into the air. The projection showed humanoid figures standing in a grand hall, their faces solemn. They began speaking in a language none of the crew recognized, but Ethan quickly scribbled notes, trying to translate. After a few tense moments, he looked up, his expression grim. "They're accusing us," he said quietly. "Accusing us of what?" Ryan demanded, his voice sharp. Ethan swallowed hard. "Of being descendants of the ones who destroyed their world. They say humanity, our ancestors, were part of a war that wiped out countless civilizations." Laura shook her head, disbelief written across her face. "That's impossible. Humans weren't even spacefaring back then." "Maybe not directly," Ethan replied. "But these people think we're connected somehow, and now they want justice." A hologram shifted, showing scenes of destruction, planets crumbling, cities burning, and countless lives lost. It was horrifying, and the weight of the accusation hung heavily in the air. Ryan clenched his fists, anger bubbling beneath the surface. "We didn't do this. We can't be held responsible for something that happened thousands of years ago." "We might not have a choice," Laura said softly. "If we don't convince them we're different, they'll destroy us. And Earth too." Sam spoke up, her voice trembling. "So what do we do? How do we prove we're not monsters?" Laura thought for a moment, then turned to Ryan. "We tell them the truth. We show them we've learned from our mistakes. Humanity has evolved. We're not perfect, but we're trying." Ryan hesitated, weighing the risks. If they admitted fault, even indirectly, they could be signing humanity's death warrant. But if they refused, the drones would likely attack again, and this time they might not survive. "All right," he said finally, his voice firm despite the uncertainty. "Let's send a message, but we need to make sure it counts." As the team worked together to craft their response, the artifact pulsed brighter, as if listening. Outside, the drones remained still, waiting. Whatever happened next would decide not just their fate, but the fate of all humanity. The crew gathered around the artifact, their faces tense but focused. The faint glow from the object illuminated the cabin, casting long shadows on the walls. Ryan stood at the center, his arms crossed as he listened to Laura explain her plan. "We need to send a message," Laura said, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Not just words, but proof that humanity has changed. We'll include images, videos, anything that shows we're capable of peace." Ethan nodded, already pulling up files on the ship's computer. "I can compile footage of Earth's progress, our efforts to protect the environment, advances in medicine, and examples of global cooperation." Sam frowned, her hands resting on the edge of the table. "You really think they'll care about some pictures and videos? These drones don't exactly seem like the emotional type." "It's not about emotion," Laura replied. "It's about showing them that we're different now, that we've learned from the past." Ryan sighed, rubbing his temples. Even if this works, there's no guarantee they'll believe us. What if they see it as an act? A trick? Laura met his gaze, her expression unwavering. Then we take that risk. If we don't try, we lose everything anyway. With no other options left, the team got to work. Ethan sifted through archives, selecting moments of humanity's greatest achievements. Astronauts shaking hands in space, nations signing peace treaties, scientists working together to combat disease. Sam helped by adding data about Earth's current state, efforts to reverse climate change, restore ecosystems, and promote equality. Laura wrote a heartfelt narration, emphasizing humanity's struggles and its determination to grow. As they pieced the message together, the artifact pulsed softly, almost as if urging them to hurry. Outside, the drones remained motionless, their lights dimmed but still active. The silence was unnerving, a constant reminder of the stakes. When the message was ready, Laura turned to Ryan. "It's time." Ryan hesitated, glancing at the screen displaying the holographic figures. What if this doesn't work? What if they decide to attack Earth regardless? Then we fight for what we believe in, Laura said firmly. But I don't think they want war. They want answers, and maybe even hope. Taking a deep breath, Ryan gave a sharp nod. All right, let's do it. Ethan connected the message to the artifact, his fingers trembling slightly as he pressed the final button. The glow intensified, and the hologram flickered again, this time responding with new images. The humanoid figures appeared once more, their expressions unreadable as they processed the information. For several agonizing minutes, nothing happened. The cabin was silent except for the hum of the artifact. Then, slowly, the drones began to retreat, their lights fading as they drifted away from the ship. "They're leaving," Sam whispered, her voice filled with disbelief. But before anyone could celebrate, the artifact emitted a sharp beep, and the projection changed. Words appeared in the air, written in the same language as before. Ethan quickly translated them. They say, they will consider our message. But they warn us, if humanity fails again, there will be no second chance. The weight of those words settled over the group. Laura exhaled slowly, her shoulders relaxing just a fraction. That's more than we had before. Ryan nodded, though his expression remained grim. Let's get out of here while we still can. As the team prepared to leave the planet, the artifact dimmed, its glow fading completely. Whatever power it held seemed to have been exhausted. Ethan carefully placed it back into its container, treating it with newfound respect. Back aboard the shuttle, the journey home felt both lighter and heavier. They had survived, but the encounter left them shaken. Humanity had been given a reprieve, but also a warning. As the lush green planet disappeared behind them, Ryan stared out the window, his thoughts turning to the future. What happens now? Sam asked quietly. Ryan glanced at her, then at the rest of the team. Now, we make sure we don't waste this chance. The shuttle ride back to the main ship was quiet, each member of the team lost in their own thoughts. The weight of what had happened, and what might still happen, hung over them like a storm cloud. Ryan sat in the pilot's seat, his hands gripping the controls tighter than necessary. Laura stared out the window, her mind replaying the holographic figures and their chilling warning. Sam fidgeted with a loose thread on her sleeve, while Ethan scribbled notes into his journal, trying to make sense of everything they'd learned. When they finally docked with the main ship, the silence broke as everyone began preparing for the long journey home. But the tension remained. None of them could shake the feeling that their encounter wasn't truly over. The artifact may have been inactive now, but its message lingered. Humanity was being watched. We need to tell Earth about this, Laura said suddenly, breaking the quiet. Not just the governments or the scientists, but everyone. Humanity needs to know what's at stake. Ryan turned to her, his brow furrowed. You think broadcasting this is a good idea? What if it causes panic? Or worse, what if people ignore it? Laura shook her head firmly. We can't keep this a secret. If we do, nothing will change. The drones gave us a chance to prove ourselves, but that chance won't last forever. We need to start making changes now." Ethan nodded in agreement. "She's right. This isn't just about us. It's about every person on Earth. If we don't act, we're no better than whoever caused that war thousands of years ago." Sam hesitated, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. "But how do we even begin? Most people won't believe us. They'll think it's some kind of hoax." "Then we show them proof," Laura replied, pointing to the data they had collected, the ruins, the artifact, the drones, and the holograms. "We have evidence, real, undeniable proof that we're not alone, and that our actions matter." Ryan sighed, leaning against the wall. He wanted to argue, to find another way. But deep down, he knew Laura was right. Keeping this secret wouldn't protect anyone. In fact, it might doom them all. "All right," he said finally. "We'll send the message. But we need to be careful about how we do it." Over the next few hours, the team worked together to compile everything they had gathered. Ethan edited the footage of the ruins and the holograms, adding subtitles and explanations to make it easier for people to understand. Laura wrote a speech, outlining both the warning and the opportunity humanity had been given. Sam focused on encrypting the transmission, ensuring it couldn't be intercepted or altered before reaching Earth. As the final pieces came together, Ryan stood by the communication console, staring at the button that would send their message across the galaxy. His hand hovered above it, hesitating. Once he pressed it, there would be no turning back. The world would never be the same. "What are you waiting for?" Laura asked gently, stepping beside him. Ryan glanced at her, then at the rest of the team. "I'm wondering if we're ready for this, for what comes next." "We have to be," Laura said simply. "Because if we aren't, no one else will be." Taking a deep breath, Ryan pressed the button. The transmission shot out into space, carrying their words, their warnings, and their hopes. For a moment, the cabin was completely silent, the enormity of what they had just done sinking in. Then, almost immediately, the ship's systems lit up with incoming signals. Messages from Earth flooded the screens, scientists, leaders, and ordinary citizens reacting to the broadcast. Some were skeptical, others terrified, but many seemed determined to listen. "They're paying attention," Ethan said, his voice filled with awe. Ryan allowed himself a small smile. "For better or worse, we've started something." As the ship continued its journey home, the crew knew their work was far from over. Humanity had been given a second chance, but whether it would rise to the challenge remained to be seen. For now, though, they had done all they could. The rest was up to the world they were racing back to save. The journey back to Earth felt longer than ever. The crew sat in silence, each lost in their own thoughts as the ship hurtled through the vast emptiness of space. Ryan stared at the stars outside the window, wondering what awaited them when they returned. Laura reviewed the transmission one last time, making sure every word was clear and honest. Ethan flipped through his notes, double-checking the translations of the alien messages, while Sam tinkered with the ship's systems, ensuring everything was running smoothly. When they finally entered Earth's atmosphere, the sight below was both familiar and strange. Cities stretched across the landscape, their lights twinkling like constellations against the darkened planet. But now, knowing what they did, the view felt heavier, like a fragile jewel hanging by a thread. As soon as they landed, the team was greeted by a swarm of officials, scientists, and reporters. Cameras flashed, and voices shouted questions from every direction. Ryan raised a hand to quiet the crowd. "We'll answer your questions," he said firmly, "but first, we need to speak directly to the leaders and the people." The crew was whisked away to a secure facility where world leaders had gathered. For hours, they shared their story, the ruins, the drones, the artifact, and the warning humanity had received. At first, some were skeptical, dismissing the tale as science fiction. But when Ethan played the holographic footage and displayed the translated message, the room fell silent. "This isn't just about us," Laura said, her voice steady but urgent. "It's about everyone on this planet. We've been given a chance to prove we're better than our past, to show that we can live without repeating the mistakes that led to war and destruction." Her words struck a chord. Slowly, the leaders began to nod, their expressions shifting from doubt to determination. Plans were made to address global issues, climate change, inequality, and conflict zones, with renewed urgency. News outlets broadcast the team's message worldwide, sparking debates and protests, but also inspiring acts of kindness and unity. In the weeks that followed, the phrase, "We let you live once, never again," became a rallying cry. People used it to remind themselves of the responsibility they carried, not just to Earth, but to the universe. Schools taught lessons about the encounter, urging future generations to think beyond borders and focus on cooperation. For the crew, life didn't return to normal. They were hailed as heroes, but they didn't see themselves that way. Instead, they saw themselves as messengers, ordinary people thrust into an extraordinary situation. Each member of the team handled the attention differently. Ryan retreated to his home, finding solace in quiet moments under the night sky. Laura traveled the world, speaking at conferences and encouraging others to take action. Ethan continued studying the artifact, hoping to unlock more secrets hidden within its surface. And Sam threw herself into her work, designing new technologies aimed at protecting Earth's environment. One evening, months after their return, the team reunited at a small observatory. They stood together, gazing up at the stars through a telescope. The artifact sat nearby, still inactive but somehow comforting in its presence. "Do you think they're watching us?" Sam asked softly, breaking the silence. "I hope so," Laura replied, "because if they are, I want them to see how hard we're trying." Ryan nodded, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "And if we fail? Then we'll have no one to blame but ourselves," Laura said simply. "But I don't think we will. Not this time." As they stood there, surrounded by the vastness of space, the crew felt a glimmer of hope. Humanity wasn't perfect, and the road ahead would be difficult. But for the first time in a long time, they felt united, not just as nations or individuals, but as a species determined to survive and thrive. The stars above seemed brighter that night, as if reminding them that they weren't alone. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together.